World War II was ravaging Europe. While many were consumed by the sounds of air raid sirens and the constant threat of bombings, something equally dangerous was unfolding behind closed doors in Britain's most prestigious academic institution. The very core of Cambridge University, a symbol of knowledge and tradition, was about to be scorched by scandal. Before we get started, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon. The unsettling beginnings. It was the evening of November 15, 1941, when a fire broke out in the ancient archives of Cambridge University Library, a repository of history research and, perhaps most critically, government secrets. The fire quickly spread, consuming priceless manuscripts, scientific works, and classified documents from Britain's war efforts. Among these lost documents were highly sensitive files detailing Britain's war strategies and a cryptic collection of research that many believe held explosive information. In the midst of a war-torn Britain, the Cambridge fire might have appeared to be a tragic accident, but as the smoke cleared, the questions began to pile up. What documents had really been lost in that fire? And why, of all places, did this catastrophic event occur in the heart of an institution housing some of the most valuable wartime information? For many, the timing of the fire seemed far too convenient to be mere coincidence. Britain, already at its breaking point with Nazi Germany, could ill afford another disaster. And yet, this wasn't just a blow to Britain's intellectual legacy, it was a blow to its national security. The fire had destroyed vital intelligence files, papers that documented Britain's wartime strategies and covert operations. Was it an accident, or was someone trying to cover their tracks? The lives of the Cambridge Five, spy wing. To unravel this mystery, we must first understand the landscape of Cambridge during World War II. The university was more than just an academic hub. It was a crossroads of political ideologies and a breeding ground for espionage. In the hallowed halls of this institution, a group of students and professors were secretly working to subvert British interests from within. These weren't ordinary spies. They were known as the Cambridge Five, a spy ring that would go down in history as one of the most devastating breaches of British intelligence. The Cambridge Five consisted of well-educated, upper-class intellectuals who blended seamlessly into British society. Kim Philby, Donald Maclean, Guy Burgess, Anthony Blunt, and John Cairncross were all brilliant students and esteemed academics, yet they were secretly working as informants for the Soviet Union. Their activities would go on to cripple Britain's intelligence capabilities for years. But during the early 1940s, their covert operations were just beginning to be suspected. To fully understand the Cambridge fire scandal and its implications, we must first delve into the backgrounds of the Cambridge Five, the individuals who would become some of the most notorious spies in British history. Each member brought with them a unique set of skills and ideological beliefs that ultimately led them down the path of treachery. Kim Philby, born in 1912 into a privileged family in British India, was the son of a high-ranking British intelligence officer. His early exposure to politics and espionage deeply influenced him. Philby was a natural orator, charming those around him with his wit and intelligence. He studied at King's College, Cambridge, where he met many who would later become his fellow conspirators. Philby's ideological leanings towards communism began during his time at university, where he developed relationships with leftist activists, solidifying his path as a double agent. Next is Donald Maclean, born in 1913 to a wealthy family with ties to the British elite. He, too, was drawn to the intellectual debates held at Cambridge. Maclean excelled in articulating his radical views on socialism, which endeared him to fellow students, including Philby. His deep-seated belief in the socialist cause would drive him to betray his country in favor of the Soviet Union. Guy Burgess, born in 1911, was a flamboyant figure known for his charisma and theatrical flair. He studied history at Cambridge, where he became involved in the university's vibrant social scene. Burgess was a master of disguise, not just literally but socially as well. He easily moved between circles, charming everyone from aristocrats to fellow radicals. His loyalty to the Soviet cause stemmed from a combination of personal relationships and a desire for a dramatic life, one that would make him stand out. Anthony Blunt, born in 1907, was an accomplished art historian and a member of the British establishment. Educated at King's College, he became a prominent figure in the art world. However, his connections to Soviet operatives began to surface as he grew disillusioned with British imperialism. Blunt's unique position allowed him access to sensitive information, which he would later pass on to the Soviets, hiding in plain sight among the cultural elite. Finally, we have John Cairncross, born in 1913, often considered the least known of the five. His quiet demeanor and analytical mind set him apart from the more flamboyant personalities. He studied modern languages at Cambridge and had a deep appreciation for literature. Cairncross's intelligence made him an attractive recruit for the Soviet intelligence apparatus. He believed in the Soviet ideology and found it appealing to work against what he perceived as British imperialism. As the war raged on and their espionage activities intensified, each of these individuals was drawn deeper into a world of secrecy, deception, and ultimately betrayal. The ideological fervor that ignited their passion for communism transformed into a web of lies that would entangle them and their country in a scandal that would haunt Britain for decades to come. In retrospect, the Cambridge Five weren't just spies. They were a reflection of a broader ideological battle of the era, an era where the ideals of socialism clashed with nationalism, leading to decisions that would alter the course of history. Their lives, woven together by intellect, privilege, and radical beliefs, set the stage for one of the most significant espionage scandals of the 20th century. It's no secret that Cambridge was a fertile ground for the recruitment of spies. Many of these intellectuals were drawn to the ideals of communism, believing that the Soviet Union held the key to a post-war utopia. But their activities didn't go unnoticed. British intelligence, primarily MI5, had begun to suspect that high-level leaks were occurring at Cambridge. They just didn't know who to trust. Could the Cambridge fire have been part of an effort to destroy evidence of these traitors? Was it an attempt to wipe clean the trails of espionage before they were exposed? Some of the documents lost in the fire were rumored to be tied to British counterintelligence efforts aimed at tracking down Soviet spies within their own ranks. But conveniently, with the fire, those leads disappeared, and the investigation into the suspected spies at Cambridge hit a dead end. Coincidence or a calculated move? The fire wasn't the only suspicious event that took place at Cambridge in 1941. In the aftermath of the disaster, several key figures associated with the university and its archives would meet tragic and untimely ends. First among them was Professor Harold Newman, a noted historian and an expert on Cambridge's historical documents. Newman had been tasked with overseeing the archives that were destroyed in the fire, and he wasn't shy about expressing his doubts about the official narrative surrounding the blaze. Professor Newman had confided to close colleagues that he had uncovered something of grave importance. Newman believed he had stumbled upon evidence of a covert operation being run from within Cambridge itself. Just weeks before his death, Newman had been seen speaking with individuals rumored to have ties to MI5. Was he sharing his findings with British intelligence? And did those findings ultimately seal his fate? On the night of December 9, 1941, Newman was found dead in his study, the victim of an apparent heart attack. Yet those who knew him found the circumstances surrounding his death suspicious. He had been in good health, and there were no signs of struggle. His colleagues believed that Newman had been silenced before he could reveal what he had uncovered. Was he simply collateral damage in a larger conspiracy to protect Britain's wartime secrets? But Newman wasn't the only one to meet a tragic end. Dr. Margaret Sinclair, a historian with close ties to British intelligence, vanished just days after the fire. Sinclair had been conducting research on wartime espionage at Cambridge, and she had been vocal about her belief that the fire was no accident. Her colleagues noted that she had been unusually anxious in the days leading up to her disappearance, as if she feared for her life. On November 20, 1941, Sinclair was scheduled to deliver a lecture on wartime intelligence at the university. she never arrived. Her disappearance remains unsolved, and to this day, no trace of her has ever been found. Some believe that Sinclair had uncovered information that could have exposed the truth behind the fire and the activities of the Cambridge Five. Others suggest that she may have been eliminated by foreign operatives seeking to protect their interests. Whatever the case, her fate remains one of the many dark mysteries left in the wake of the Cambridge fire scandal. Unanswered questions and modern revelations. Decades after the fire, the questions remain unanswered. The official inquiry into the incident was closed almost as quickly as it had begun. British authorities at the time chalked the fire up to an unfortunate accident, blaming faulty electrical wiring in the library. But those close to the investigation believed otherwise. Too many crucial pieces of evidence had been lost. Too many voices silenced. It wasn't until the 1990s that new information began to surface. Declassified documents revealed that British intelligence had been closely monitoring the activities of suspected Soviet spies at Cambridge as early as 1939. Among these documents were references to covert surveillance operations and coded communications between the Cambridge Five and their Soviet handlers. Some of these documents, which were believed to have been stored in the Cambridge University Library, were lost forever in the fire. But were they really lost? Or were they removed and destroyed intentionally? Recent revelations have shed new light on just how deeply the Cambridge Five had infiltrated British society. The fire may have been part of a larger effort to cover their tracks, to erase the paper trail that could have exposed their treachery. But if this was the case, why did it take so long for the truth to come out? And how many more secrets remain buried beneath the ashes? In interviews with former intelligence officers, it's become clear that many believe the full extent of the Cambridge fire scandal has yet to be uncovered. Some have even suggested that the fire was orchestrated by elements within the British government itself, perhaps to protect national interests during a time of war, or to prevent certain individuals from being implicated in espionage. Whatever the case, the Cambridge fire scandal continues to be one of the most mysterious and disturbing events in British history. Final revelation. As we look back at the Cambridge fire scandal, we are left with so many questions and mystery. Was the fire simply a tragic accident, or was it part of a larger, more wicked conspiracy? Were the Cambridge Five directly involved in covering their tracks, or was the fire orchestrated by unseen forces within British intelligence? And what happened to the key figures who disappeared or died under mysterious circumstances in the aftermath of the fire? These are the questions that come to mind when we talk about this story, which is one of the many that are covered in the shadows of the past. One thing is clear: the truth about the Cambridge fire scandal remains buried in the ashes of history. The official records may be gone, but the whispers of espionage, betrayal, and cover-ups continue to echo through the hallowed halls of Cambridge University. Will we ever uncover the full extent of this conspiracy, or will the truth remain hidden locked away in the shadows of Britain's wartime secrets. Or perhaps someday we will know what really happened. Or maybe we learn through this that sometimes you may not find answers to your questions through evidence alone, but rather through instinct and a deep understanding of similar cases. The truth often becomes clear only when you put in the effort to seek it out. Are you intrigued by the untold stories of history, the forgotten mysteries that still haunt us today? Then don't forget to subscribe to Mystery Media for more in-depth explorations of the world's darkest conspiracies and unsolved enigmas. And as always, stay curious, because the truth is out there, waiting to be discovered.